If you're in pest control, lawn care, HVAC, plumbing, or any of the trades, you already know what you're going to spend on advertising and marketing in this quarter, but do you know what you're spending to get a new client? So starting in 2026, FRAXN is adding a new KPI, customer acquisition cost, or CAC for short. Cameron, welcome back.
PB, good to be here. Good to see you.
So being the brilliant accountant you are, help us pull CAC apart and let's put it back together.
Yeah, so CAC, or customer acquisition cost, like you said, really is a basic equation at the end of the day, right? We're looking at selling and marketing costs over a given period of time, divided by the number of new clients in that same period, right? That's going to give you your CAC, or customer acquisition cost, for that period.
Cool. Is it more than just ad spend then, I guess?
Yes, obviously it is ad spend, right? So whatever you're spending with Google, Facebook, mailers, whatever you're doing in terms of ad spend. But it's also going to be costs like any marketing agency fees you have, any spend you have for, maybe website design, SEO, right? Any firms you might be paying for anything that might be marketing or ad related. And then another thing that a lot of people don't include is that any commissions or bonuses you pay your salespeople or your staff for bringing in new clients. That's also going to be a part of that numerator, or that selling and marketing spend figure.
Awesome. But why now? Why is it important that we track the CAC?
When we meet with clients and do review calls, ad and marketing spend is always something we look at. And traditionally, right, kind of old school, you look at it as a percentage of revenue. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, right? But looking at CAC and adding this as another data point, I think it narrows the focus and kind of crystallizes the idea around what am I spending to get clients. So ultimately, like you said, we're adding it as a KPI because I really do think it's going to give more insights and another key data point for clients when analyzing their ad spend. Helps it make it more tangible, if you will, of every dollar I'm spending is going towards hopefully getting clients, right? But now you actually know how many dollars per new client on average, right? And we're going to be tracking this monthly for you guys. So from month to month, you'll see what CAC was, how it's trending. You'll be able to look at it 12-month rolling averages once we have that much data, right? And it's really going to help inform clients make better decisions around advertising and marketing.
All right, Cameron, I know our client said, I want CAC on the KPI dashboard. So I know we've been particular, not just adding extra KPI to do so or add. So I want to hear from you, like why CAC matters. Why CAC now?
Past couple of years, anyone in the industry would agree that advertising is getting more and more expensive. The traditional channels that people have advertised and done marketing through are getting more expensive. I feel like every call I get on with a client when advertising comes up, the common refrain or lament is how expensive Google is now. And so instead of just continuing to throw money at Google and hope you're getting new clients, and maybe you are getting new clients, but you don't necessarily know if they're coming from Google or not. Tracking CAC on a monthly basis, the way we're going to do it, will give you real period feedback where CAC is trending, right? And so maybe for a period of time, you're investing more heavily in Google, right? If CAC continues to climb up, well, then maybe you're not getting the return you want on Google. Maybe you can pivot and try other different channels, right? Maybe channels that would give you a lower CAC or a better return on that spend. Whereas now there isn't that level of granularity or visibility into your selling and marketing spend. So I think now more than ever, it's important that clients do have that visibility and are able to get some level of feedback on what their customer acquisition cost is.
That's awesome. Now, the chance for a good CPA to nerd out for a second. How are we going to calculate CAC at FRAXN, and how often are our clients going to see it reported?
It's going to be a monthly KPI that we present. Obviously, in like an annual report, you would see an annual figure. In the dashboard, right, all the cool little tricks and tips of little cutouts and snippets of trailing 12-month averages or trailing 6-month averages, right? Whatever you want to toggle and trend, you can look at in the dashboard, right? So on the face of the reports, we're going to give you a monthly KPI, but obviously in the dashboard, you have the freedom and the versatility to kind of look at different time frames. But yeah, so it's going to be a monthly KPI, a monthly metric you get to see for that given month, right? But going back to the way we're calculating it, it's going to be all your ad spend, all your marketing spend, the spend related to any sort of vendors or marketing agencies you work with, any commissions you pay to sales guys, bonuses you pay to sales guys related to new clients. If you're a door-to-door company that uses door-to-door sales guys, right, all the commissions you're paying your door-to-door folks, all those costs are going to be totaled for that given period, and then divided by the number of new clients in that period. And the way we're going to do that is by going into client CRMs and looking at new clients in each month, right? And what we're considering a new client is, has this client ever been serviced before? If not, right, they're a new client. If they have showed up in your database before, you have serviced them before, then obviously they're not going to be considered a new client.
All right, Cayman, once a client sees what their CAC is, what decisions can they make from seeing that?
The first thing is, I'm spending X amount on a client to get the client. How long will it take for me to recoup that, in terms of profit? Kind of a payback period, if you will, is one way to think about it. So just putting, once again, some numbers down so everyone can kind of visualize it. If a new customer is getting you $1,000 in gross profit over a 12-month period, let's say, and you spent $250 to acquire that client, right? It's going to be roughly a quarter or 3 months to recoup your cost for acquiring that client. Vice versa, could be problematic if maybe the gross profit related to a client over 12 months is $700 and your customer acquisition cost was $600. Well, you're nearly going the entire year before you actually recoup your costs on that client. So then it's just a matter of cash flow and planning that out, knowing that you're essentially financing the cost of that client for an entire year. And that's not necessarily the end of the world if your clients are really sticky and you have a 4, 5, 6 year average lifespan of a customer, right? Because you're getting years and years of profitable customers on top of that. But maybe you have a lot more customer attrition than maybe industry standards, right? Maybe you're only keeping a client for 18 months or a year or 2 years. Right? All of a sudden, that $600 customer acquisition cost is a little more problematic because you're not giving yourself much leeway in terms of covering that cost and then making money on top of that.
I love that. So you're not just blindly adding customers without knowing what it's doing to your gross profit margin or to your bottom line. So I love how it's interactive in that term, in that sense there. Now I think about advertising cost, traditional 6%, 8%, 10%, 12%. Like you said, if it's a recurring client or lifetime value, high lifetime value, you're willing to spend more. But we have clients on the other end, on the high end, that are paying 80 cents on the dollar or dollar for dollar, or maybe even acquisitions out there. But door-to-door sales is very cost prohibitive or a very high investment. Doing acquisitions is very high in that regard. So what do we have to provide in terms of like our clients in benchmarking when they can see, am I doing okay? How are others doing in my industry?
Not just with customer acquisition costs, but with all of our KPIs, right? Our dashboard has really cool benchmarking capabilities for pest control companies. Specifically with CAC, right? It's going to be a nice ability for clients to log in, see what their CAC is, and then ask, well, what are other people's CAC, right? And they'll immediately be able to see, nearly 200 clients across the country what their CAC is, right? And then you can further split it by geography or region. So maybe you're in the Southeast and you're like, well, cool, someone in California's CAC is X. I don't really care about California. Like, what's happening in the Southeast, right? What are my peers in my region? What are their CACs, right? And then you get an immediate sense of, well, I'm on par with others. Maybe I'm in a better position. Maybe I'm in a worse position, right? But not only am I in a better or worse position, you can also see with those same clients of ours what their gross profit margin is. For instance, you might have a CAC that's a little better than someone in your region, but you might have a 55% gross profit margin and they have a 65% gross profit margin, right? And so them being more profitable, they might be able to afford a slightly higher CAC, right? So all things being equal, they might be in a better position than you, even though you have a slightly lower CAC. But to your point with the door-to-door, the CACs on door-to-door users or companies that use door-to-door, it's going to stand out and obviously be a lot higher than a more traditional pest control company. So we actually have a separate benchmark group for door-to-door companies, right? That way they're a little more normalized and apples to apples when looking at something like CAC. But yeah, the door-to-door companies will definitely stand out in our larger benchmark group when it comes to CAC, for sure.
And especially, I think, as they're newer businesses versus a more mature business and able to dial back and on those clients. And so, or incorporate advertising that's not necessarily on the doors. So a lot of good information there as they log on the dashboard and can look at these benchmarking groups. I'm just thinking about this, Cameron. If I'm not a FRAXN client, is CAC something that I should be measuring on my own?
Yes, I think everyone should try and measure it if they can, and everyone is able to, right? Assuming you have good inputs and good data. I think that's one of the big benefits of FRAXN. Obviously, we give you the clean inputs, the clean data, and then we'll calculate CAC for you. So we take all the work out of it. But if you're not with FRAXN or you're not in a place where you can work with us, I definitely think you should try and taking a stab at getting a CAC number measured and track it, at least somewhat regularly. I think it'll be telling and helpful for those that do it when analyzing their marketing and ad spend.
Back in the napkin, if you and I are sitting down, grabbing lunch, how would you quickly explain CAC to me in a way that I could understand?
I think we're obviously adding it as a KPI because it is important. And I think it's important for business owners to know what this metric is. And this would be one of those things where even if it's incorrect, if it's directionally accurate, it's probably better to know than have no idea, right? And so in terms of just kind of back of the napkin, I want to have a general sense, right? You really just want to add up any marketing and ad spend you have. So obviously all the Googles, the Facebooks, etc. Maybe you have a marketing firm, right? What are you paying them monthly? You don't need to necessarily get too bogged down on, well, what was commissions for this guy and that guy, and go through pay stubs, I wouldn't necessarily worry about that too much if you're just going back to the napkin. Just get the things you're spending on advertising, marketing, and then divide that by the number of new clients over that same period of time, right? Just to give you a general sense of what your CAC is.
Cameron, thanks for the quick back of the napkin approach. I just want to encourage the service business owners out there doing $500K with clients doing over $30 million, where they can quickly manage their business and steer it in the right direction for growth, just with a handful of KPIs that we give them. So they're not just reading the tea leaves of a P&L, balance sheet, statement of cash flows, and the plethora of spreadsheets that they have going. We can do it all for them and make their decisions easier heading into this new year. And so if you want to see what the dashboard looks like or learn more about how we can work with you, hit the link in the description below, and we'll talk to you soon.